Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit. February is here. Let's get the month started off right with some board game news, new games, new announcements, all for you here on this Roll for Crit News Roundup.
A new year means new beginnings, and for this news story, a new board game company. Isaac Vega, a board game designer known for many games, but including in one of our favorites, Dead of Winter, and Lindsay Rode have started a new company titled Rose Gauntlet Entertainment. First game we're going to see from Rose Gauntlet is Keystone North America. This will be coming to Kickstarter later this year, and it is all about being biologists and trying to keep an ecosystem balanced, hence the term Keystone. But we've got some more projects we know about, and it's quite an interesting spread. We've got Gone to Gaia, which will actually be a digital roguelike deck building game. So not just simply we're going to be physical board games, they're also going into the digital space as well. Then we also have an RPG titled Life After Dungeon, which is a dungeon crawling RPG, but seems to be more about life after your usual dungeon and raiding parties. And of course, they have plenty of other projects, but we only know the code names of that as well. You can go to their website to see the progress they have on all those. Isaac has worked on some very big games that we love. Lindsay Rode, from what I can tell, has worked on a bunch of RPG stuff, which makes me even more excited for the Afterlife RPG. So to see them not only come together, this whole new company, but we've got like a board game, a video game, and an RPG right out the gate. So that's quite a bit to attend with.
Yeah, Isaac has worked on some of our favorite Plaid Hat games, like you said, Dead of Winter, Forgotten Waters, Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn, and he announced that he was leaving Plaid Hat, I think just around a year ago. So it's exciting to see what this new spin-off company is going to do, and the fact that it's not just board games, but video games as well, I think is very interesting. We don't see a ton of crossover in those areas. I feel like sometimes we've seen video game designers dabble in making a board game or vice versa, but not too frequent a thing that we see. So I really like the idea of bringing maybe some tabletop sensibilities to a video game and seeing how that's going to pan out. And hopefully it's all very successful, because I'm excited to try these different games.
Both Keystone and the Gone to Gaia would actually be released in 2022, which is pretty great to get two right off the bat next to each other.
Yeah, and it's always just very encouraging to see board game designers who are following their passions. It's great when they are working with a company, but it's also awesome to see them striking out on their own and doing their own thing. And we know for sure that they're really following their dreams and doing something that they love, which usually results in a better product, I think.
I really hope that they eventually make a 2-player game that's all about challenging someone to a duel by slapping with a rose gauntlet.
That'll be the ultimate game, yeah. Sentinels of the Multiverse is the cooperative superhero card game from Greater Than Games that wrapped its line up with its final expansion not too long ago, but now it is coming back with a brand new edition of the game, Sentinels of the Multiverse Definitive Edition. This one has a lot of reworked components. All of the artwork has been redone, and the text on the cards has been reworded here and there to make things clearer, to make gameplay faster and easier. And it is going to be coming back first in the form of a big core box on Kickstarter March 30th, which will include 12 heroes, 6 villains, and 6 locations that you can mix and match and play in different ways. And then beyond that, they said they have plans in the works for 6 future large box expansions coming out over a period of perhaps the next 6 years. So maybe we'll see one a year, depending on how things go. This is a big game, a popular game, one that we have really enjoyed in the past, and I would say one that definitely could use a new edition. There were certainly some things rough around the edges on this one. Even though the art was great, there are definitely some places where you could see inconsistencies, whereas this new style, I think, is very clean, very consistent, looks great, and you can tell we've just seen a couple of the cards so far for comparison, but you can see there's areas where they have changed some keywords and timing of things just to make them a little bit clearer. Another thing about this game that everybody always complained about is all the different little tokens you had to keep track of and who has more attack power when and how and where. So presumably that's something that they'll be addressing in this new version. It's always a thing when you get a new edition of a game that already has a bunch of expansions, because it's like, oh, now people are gonna have to rebuy everything again. Is it really going to be worth it? But what do you think, Will? Are you on board for this one?
It's tough because I think part of the charm was some of, like, I know you said like some of the art is like you can tell it's a little lacking, and I think it's part of the charm because with certain products when they do that new edition and they really make the art and really like it technically looks better, but it's much more uniform.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like I hope what they try to do is actually go really weird and different, because if you look at comics, where this is based off of, there are very obvious art styles of certain comic book artists. So if they're going to do those other boxes, I'm hoping that they actually make it like you can tell just from the art which expansion it's from. That would help at least make sure it doesn't look like just the same tone throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, they talked a little bit about how, the artist is able to do different periods, like 60s comics, 70s comics. And yeah, I think it's like a night and day difference. I mean, I never had a real problem with the art in the original Sentinels, but looking at this, to me, it's like, oh, this looks like a much more professional, high quality product that I especially like, 10 years later, I don't know, I forget exactly how long it's been. I think people now, compared to the high quality, glossy games that are out, might look at the original Sentinels and go, that doesn't look as good as like the newer stuff. And I do think this stands up better to more modern games.
Just to clarify, those 6 other boxes, are they also just reworks of
We
this
do
stuff?
not know. Yeah.
Okay,
We don't even know in the core box. Some of those might be new heroes in addition to some of the original ones. I think the original box had like 3 or 4 villains in it. It was much smaller.
I think it was 3. Yeah, it was very small.
It felt more limited, and this with 12 heroes and 6 villains feels like you're getting more bang for your buck. Even if you have the old stuff already, it sounds less like, at least they're not selling it in the exact same format. They're kind of like up front, here's a whole new way to play. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and hopefully it's worth the upgrade and doesn't just feel like people are having to pay again for the same thing.
Magic the Gathering's newest set, Kaldheim, released this last weekend for pre-release. You can actually watch a video of me opening up some packs from a box and pre-release kit, but we're not here to talk about that plane just yet. We're going to talk about how they are partnering with Boom Studios to bring a new comic line for Magic the Gathering. This will be written by the same person who works on Black Cat, as well as the artist from Ghost Spider. The story being our newest planeswalkers who took over some of the guilds on Ravnica. Apparently there is an assassination attempt, and they must go down and find out what's going on, which should lead them to the plane of Zendikar, which should also lead to a major confrontation with an important Magic the Gathering character. Right now, that's pretty much the most we know. We can see some art of the planeswalkers, including Jace. I don't know whether he's just there just because he's sort of the big Magic the Gathering planeswalker, or if he's also going to play a large role. But this should have multiple issues, and of course, variant covers for all the different planeswalkers with different artists.
Now, this is not the first time we've seen Magic the Gathering stories in other mediums. There have been Magic books and things like that. Is this the first Magic comic that you're aware of? And do we know if this is going to be an ongoing series, or at least a multiple issue series right now?
It is not the first comic. In fact, I believe there were some old comics that only recently the characters got cards of in. But it did sound like this would be multiple issues. I don't know whether it'd be like a continuous series. It could just be like a 4 or 5 issue like closed story arc.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for it in general. These characters, probably Vraska's the one I'm most interested in, mostly because she had a fantastic story with Jace on the plane of Ixalan. I'm not crazy about Ravnica, and I know I'm like the only person who's not in love with that plane. So I'm hoping that this does well enough that they can go to maybe some other worlds and maybe do some stories there.
We just read the Gloomhaven comic and liked it a lot, so maybe this is the start of a renaissance of board game tabletop media in the comic world. I don't know. Another game is getting a new edition. This time it's Ticket to Ride Europe with its 15th anniversary edition, celebrating 15 years of Ticket to Ride Europe, which is the European version of the original Ticket to Ride, where you're competing to lay out your trains to complete routes. This time you have stations and a different map, of course. This new edition of the game is going to have a much larger box with a bigger map and bigger, beautiful colored train pieces that all come in these special little designer tins that you can store them all in that look very nice in the box, as well as it sounds like it's going to include cards and content from the 1912 expansion, I believe it is. So they are calling this the definitive version of the game, something that will look really nice on your shelf if you're a collector, or maybe be a good way to jump into it if you never got around to the European version of Ticket to Ride. It's going to be released in spring of this year, and it's going to retail for around $100. So it is a big game. It's a big one. You know, they're going all out. So something you want to really be sure you want as a big Ticket to Ride collector and fan.
I really enjoyed the changes they actually made in Europe. I mean, I still like the base, but those stations are a lot of fun. And it makes sense to add the 1912. I think it was 1910 for the American one, but they both felt like fixes. Like the kind of stuff like, yeah, this should be included now in the bases. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy to hear about that. I wonder if we're going to see them like do a re-implementation of the map packs, but just be like, I think there are 5. There are a lot more. There are more than 5, but like just one big box that has all of them instead of, you know, how like there were a bunch of different packs.
Yeah, that would be cool. If I recall, I don't think they did anything like that for the first Ticket to Ride Anniversary Edition. So I don't know if they're more just like, this is like a limited thing for big fans, and if you really like everything, you can get the regular edition. But maybe we'll see. I don't know. Maybe it would be awesome if they made everything into a giant, beautiful version of it that was very expensive.
AEG is doing an anniversary edition for Warlord's Saga of the Storm. This 20th anniversary edition will include new cards for the game. However, some of you may not have heard of it. That's because this game has not been in print for 15 years. Apparently, though, the game is still strong and they still want to celebrate it because 20 years is still a big milestone. The original game, the way it seemed to work is you'd have decks of cards and you'd actually try to gain stronger overlords. And if you're able to beat them, you would add the overlord to your collection. And then there are dragon lords, which are even stronger, which if you want to get, you'd have to first ante up one of your overlords you got in order and defeat your opponent to take their dragon lord. Finally, there are Medusan lords. There would only be one version of each Medusan lord controlled by a player, probably a staff employee, that you would find at events, and then you would have to ante up one of your dragon lords and hopefully be able to defeat their difficult deck, which was usually some advanced puzzle and probably some luck in drawing whatever cards you need as well. This new version will actually include some of the Medusan lords, but as simple overlords, so I guess more of a prequel version of these cards, but this is very interesting considering it's for a card game that isn't around too much, and also anting is very, it really stinks if you lose the card you have. So it was really crazy to hear about this where the entire system is all about anteing up the cards you want in order to get some of them. The Medusan lords themselves, I think they're told there are 42. And while there are some that just got passed around, I think there are 8, if I'm remembering correctly, that were actually retired because they're considered too powerful, undefeatable.
Okay, yeah, that's a little scary. Yeah, Warlord, I swear it's a name that I have heard in discussion here and there, as it was a CCG back in the day, but I have never seen or played it in any capacity really. And it sounds like they are putting out a new set, but they don't have plans to really. Like, it's not coming back.
Yes.
It's not like they're going to be producing this on an ongoing basis.
No, it seemed more of just to celebrate the 20th anniversary, and because it sounds like there's still a significant portion of people playing it, that it's sort of like a nice little reward to give to them to help spice things up. We'll see what happens. Maybe if this makes it sort of explode again.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they're testing the waters a little bit. New releases for you this week. Anansi is a trick-taking game based off of Anansi, the character, the trickster god from mythology, appropriately enough. In this one, you will be attempting to take tricks while also trying to gain followers and maybe sometimes doing sneaky things like even being able to change what suit is the trump card for the trick that you're currently playing. Next up, there's Detective Charlie. This is a cooperative deduction game aimed at a younger audience. So it's got cute animal characters, and you're trying to solve a mystery, move around, and find clues before you run out of time to solve that mystery. There are a few different cases that you can play through. Fun for the whole family, perhaps. Next up is Rapa Nui, which you may know better as Easter Island. In this one, everyone is attempting to gather resources and build those cool big moai heads on Easter Island. And depending on how good your offerings are and the size and style of your moai heads, you'll be gaining victory points and hopefully gaining enough to win the game. Shadowrun has another new book for its new edition, Collapsing Now, which includes information on 10 new organizations, super secret shadowy organizations that players can interact with in all manner of ways. And lastly, some Fantasy Flight LCG packs to throw at you. For Arkham Horror, there's Horror in High Gear. This one is a car chase themed scenario. Then there's, for Legend of the Five Rings, a Crimson Offering, which has a new keyword, Dire. Sees you getting some new powers in exchange for perhaps dealing with some dark magic. And Marvel Champions has the Wasp Hero Pack, and just like Ant-Man, Wasp has 3 forms, and her card will unfold into a bigger form, and if you play her alongside Ant-Man, they can also use a new team-up power together.
That is interesting. I'm very curious how that works. I wonder if they're going to do more team-ups in the future.
I think they are planning it. I think this is the first. I think we're going to see that from probably Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch as well.
Wait, Quicksilver and Scarlet? You mean? Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason I was thinking Silver Surfer when you said Quicksilver. Don't know, my mistake.
No, that would be a different pack. When Fantastic Four comes out, then you're going to have 4. You're going to need all 4 of you in there to use the team up battles.
Oh yeah.
The Arkham Horror one sounds pretty cool to me too. I liked when they put you on a train, so I'm excited to be in a car.
That's why the card game to me has been so great, because I feel like, I enjoy the aspects of the board game, but the nature of the card game, I know it's annoying to have to buy new packs, but they can do weird stuff like this. You're in a train, you're in a museum, you're in a car. They can just sort of, the pack can just be weird.
Yeah, they can do all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. So let us know, which of these releases are you looking forward to? If you have comments about any of these news stories, I'm sure people have thoughts about Rose Gauntlet as a new company, as well as I'm really curious to find out for Sentinels fans, if they are on board for this new edition, or if they're like, no, I've got it all, I'm done, I'm set. Talk to us in the comments. I'm sure you have plenty of things to say. That's it for this news roundup. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And that was Roll for Crit. Hey, go ahead, like and subscribe, and support our Patreon for even more board game content.
Support us now to hear the audio expansion, where you can hear all the other nerdy things we've been up to.